There are two people, and only two people, that I've ever known, that I've ever even heard that exist modern day, that were legitimately caught out of their body to witness the end of time as the world will know it. Two men. I've had the privilege of meeting both of them. Both impacted my life very uniquely in a very special way. One's man's name is John Paul Jackson. He prophesied over my wife and I. In fact, I'll probably put that video down below in the description area for you to watch. The other man's name is Danny Davis. He's my former pastor. He too was legitimately caught out of his body and witnessed the end of time. How can I say that? Because I know, folks, there are people that are skeptical, that don't believe it. Here's what's interesting, and I want you to prayerfully consider this. When I was watching the man back in 1979, 1980, 1981, he had had his out-of-body experience, I believe it was in 1978. He would preach doctrinally, pre-trib. Doctrinally, that was what he was preaching and teaching to the church back in Bakersfield, California at the time. Yet his encounter, his out-of-body experience, that even certain aspects of things that he would say in his encounter, he didn't even understand. And he was teaching them and preaching about his encounter, and yet at the same time later would preach pre-trib. I know some of you are having a problem with this. Listen to me, folks. Listen. Some of you are watching right now thinking, we're never going to see any of what we're about to see. We're not going to witness the end of America. We're going to be raptured. We're never going to see the mark. I get it, folks. That's what made this man's encounter so authentic. Preaching pre-trib, and yet seeing what he saw. And he couldn't rectify it necessarily. Do you understand what I'm saying? The encounter says one thing. Pre-trib doctrine says another. And so when he would say both, they didn't go hand in hand. They didn't jive. So that's what, when I was listening to him going, yes, yes, amen, amen, and later discussing with him, as I may even talk about a little bit in the show that you're going to see, he didn't know what to make of it. He didn't even get what he was saying. That's what makes the man's encounter so authentic. When you're speaking things and you don't even know what you're saying, doctrinally, right? They're both contradicting each other. This was the fourth show in a 4-part television series, which aired on 4 different Christian networks. This was called the Behind the Scenes. There is sensitive nature, some graphic content, folks. And the reason why we didn't choose to air it on television was because, for the most part of the topic, the graphic nature of it, some of you, this isn't going to affect you in the way that it's going to affect others. I don't know if you know this, but according to the demographics of Christian television, and even on this channel, which I find to be ironic, the majority of the audience is over the age of 65. Now, I know some of you aren't. You didn't grow up in that era. You don't understand how America was different. You don't know anything about World War. My family was affected in a very interesting way. I don't remember World War II, but my dad does. I'll never forget his uniform that my dad served in it. In that era, America was very different. It was a Christian nation. Certain topics were off limits when it came to talking about it on television. Certain imagery you wouldn't show out of respect for the audience. It was a different America. We're not that way anymore, but you didn't show certain things. Some cases, even out of respect for the dead. As you're going to see in this show, this behind the scenes show, Danny's environment that he witnessed, the atmosphere was that of World War. To where in certain cities, which is again why we kept it off limits, because again, some of you, this doesn't even make any sense. You cannot relate to World War and seeing dead bodies littered throughout the streets. Doesn't affect you in any form whatsoever. And yet some of the audience will understand that. In some cases, as Danny was seeing in certain cities, again, this is a sensitive nature to the discussion. And it's an exchange between Danny and I. He's saying what he saw, and I'm saying, yes, that's biblical. That's where I saw, that's what I've seen too. And it's biblical, folks. He said it. I think a quote was, dead bodies were piled up like kindling wood.
We're back with Pastor Danny Davis. And folks, this is going to be a little different. There were certain things I didn't say on the show. Certain things that I think are best said behind the scenes. And that's what this show is going to be. Thank you, Danny, for being with me again. I appreciate it.
It's been a joy.
Yes. I ended a quote on the last show, and it is this. If you saw the last show, folks, in fact, I'm assuming you did, or you wouldn't be at this portion of the behind the scenes. Here's what I said. There seemed to be, or this is Danny speaking, there seemed to be a sense of unrestrained evil. Death and destruction blanketed America. A sense of iron-fisted hopelessness. The skies darken, elements fail, no security. I felt I was witnessing the end of a nation. Pain and destruction everywhere. What I didn't say was something that I felt might be a little almost inappropriate, would be bodies rotting in the roads.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just take our time. I believe, based on what I've understood, is that these things we're going to talk about are in the black and white portion of your encounter.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Where you felt an unrestrained evil. And can you, because that's a quote from you, can you explain what you mean by unrestrained? I mean,
I rented a box truck one time to move to California, and there was a governor on that box truck, and it would only go so fast. If I got past a certain speed, that truck would wind itself down. In the front part of my vision, I felt like man was able to wrestle with the things that were happening in the world and try and counteract, and was making some headway. There were things that I saw happening, but I felt like, you know, God was still able to intervene. He was, and people were able to perhaps control horrible circumstances. But there came a point in my vision where I was no longer seeing anything in color. It went to black and white, and it's almost like God just withdrew His hand of help or protection or anything else.
Grace.
Grace.
Mercy.
I called it grace removed. Grace removed. And from that point forward, when you read the book, I wrote the vision.
Yeah.
I don't talk as much about that final phase of what I saw, because it happened fast. In other words, once you withdrew grace was removed from the circumstances. Let me tell you something, it snowballed, and it snowballed fast, and the things I saw, it just was almost too horrendous to even describe. The death and destruction and the calamities I was seeing, it was just like I knew from that point forward in that vision, there wasn't going to be an America anymore. The miracle was done.
So one thing, a point that I did note that you were saying when we were talking earlier, is as how you felt. And that didn't even cross my mind initially, that if I was you and I was seeing the things we're about to say.
Well, you know, I have a friend here at the studio with me today that lost his son. And he was trying to tell me how that demolished him emotionally and everything he felt about life. And I actually had a sense of total agonizing pain.
It hurt.
It hurt.
Yeah.
To think, you know, as a preacher, you think, well, I'm out preaching the gospel to lead somebody to Jesus. I want to make America a better place. But what I was seeing is past that point. In other words, once that vision went into black and white mode, there was nothing but death and destruction and agony and pain, and God was not there. I did not feel God there to help anybody.
A quote you gave was, I felt a sense of starvation and hopelessness.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Hopelessness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what we mentioned a few minutes ago Gwen Shaw. She was the president of End Time Handmaidens. I think what I remember her telling me fascinated her about my vision was the angel I saw in the end of my vision. And I'll let you lead the people into that. But I thought
We'll get to that.
there was no more America until I saw that angel.
Yeah.
There was a.
So you already knew basically where everything was headed.
It's over with.
I mean, yeah.
It's over with. Yeah. In other words, if it's like if you see an animal that's been hit by a car and it's dying, you know
Yeah.
it's dead. And
Yeah.
that's what I actually felt that way about this nation.
America is not ready.
No, I don't think so.
Again, the church, you're not ready. You're not ready for this. And you need to get ready. You need to get ready, and some you just need to kind of toss out your doctrine. I'm not here to scold you about it. We all have our thoughts and thinkings, but I got to tell you, this is the last thing. This is the last thing that the church is even thinking. We can't see America being gone.
No.
Now, you mentioned fires, so I mean.
Oh yeah.
And as the quote I gave, the sky's dark, and so obviously, I mean, the skies aren't. Either we got a lot of cloud cover and a lot of precipitation going on, or we got fires happening. I think.
Right throughout the country. Yeah, you're seeing things burning up that the things men have built. They're burning to the ground across.
So
the
skies
country.
are basically blackening over.
Black. The skies are black and ominous, and when I would look across America, you're seeing here and there things men built over perhaps decades, if not hundreds of years. It's all burning to the ground. Mm-hmm. It's from
Isn't that crazy?
coast to coast. Yeah. This.
I can't imagine thinking I'm looking at this particular city and just seeing it destroyed.
Right.
And
It's gone.
fires and
Yeah,
that
it's
doesn't make any sense, Danny.
No,
And it wouldn't have made any sense to you, especially the way you were back then, the preacher belief that I kind of brought out on. I want to touch on the parts where this encounter of yours lasted for 3.5 hours.
Correct.
Anybody who knows my teachings or the teachings that I've given, whether you're looking at YouTube or whether you've listened to my show or you have the graph, you'll know that an hour represents a year. And this was one of the things that I kept saying, yes, he's right. This is so right. And yet,
I remember when you told me, I didn't know what you were talking about in the beginning, because I didn't have a concept of the 3.5 hours. For 40 years, I didn't have a concept of it having any particular significance. Mm-hmm. Until you explained it to me, I did not know.
It's biblical.
Yeah.
What you saw, and again, this was amazing. I just loved every part of it because it's scriptural. You were taken through a 3.5 hour encounter, but it represented 3.5 years. And that prophetically, a year represents, or an hour prophetically represents a year.
Yeah.
So the fact that you were up there having this encounter for 3.5 hours, Danny, it makes perfect sense to me that you were witnessing the final 3.5 years.
Yeah, and quite truthfully, it was to the minute. There's that little red digital.
It's even red.
Analog
all
clock,
these things mean something.
Yeah.
I don't think any of this was happenstance.
Well, I'm in a room. There's no light on in that room, and when that electricity flowed through my body and I heard the voice of Christ, I woke up. And the electricity surging through me, and I look at the clock as my spirit is coming out of my body. It's 3 o'clock. Now it's 3.5 hours later. It's
representing 3.5 years. I'm saying.
I mean, to the minute.
That's not a coincidence.
Yeah, no, it's 6:30 in the morning when my spirit went back in my body, and I looked at that clock a second time.
And until this is kind of funny. I mean. You didn't know that over the course.
No, I didn't know it for 40 years.
You didn't know what he meant.
Until you showed me the significance of that, it would have never crossed my mind. Yeah.
Which shows you how genuine it is. I mean, you can't make this up, and if you're making it up, you really hit on some things that are too little coincidental for me to just say you just made it up, because you had a preacher belief even.
I've spent 40-some years traveling the world, praying for the sick, giving altar calls. Mm-hmm. I'm a healing evangelist. Mm. But I don't have an expertise like you do in the area of Bible prophecy. It's never been something I've understood that much. I've read the book of Revelations a number of times, but probably didn't understand what I was reading.
I honestly think I would rather have what you experienced than
Well,
I just got to tell you, and I think anybody...
I certainly know that I'm not coming at it from a doctrinal standpoint, because I haven't made any specific conclusions on what my doctrine is on pre-trib, mid-trib or post-trib. I just know what I saw.
What you saw.
And what I saw aftermaths over and over again
And
of occurrences. Yeah.
That's all that matters.
I think so. I think that's what my message was to the church.
Everybody has a doctrine.
Yeah. Yeah, my message,
it's like a dog,
I think,
everybody.
everybody's got name their own something different, but the message was for the church, and then we'll let experts like you take it and make it more sense out of
I'm
it.
impressed, Danny. You said at one point during this black and white portion, which I love this. I don't know if anybody's really you're considering what's really happening. God is representing himself, at least in this form of this encounter, via color. He starts off in color, and representing more of grace and mercy and love, and how it's almost reminds me of like the Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy, everything's black and white, all of a sudden she gets to Oz, and now we went to color.
Yeah, and that thought really did. It seemed deeply embedded in my spirit that change in the way I was viewing things was an absence of grace, an absence of God's Spirit.
You said at one point you saw martial law, or like of martial, militaristic evil and oppression that was happening. This is more towards the end.
Yeah.
So, at least the black and white portion of it.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. Tell me.
There's a season. There was a season where there was so much chaos in my vision.
Yeah.
And then I see mankind in all of his evil trying to control this, and it's like an iron-fisted type of suffocating existence that people had to live, and it felt like maybe people felt in Nazi Germany, if they were Jewish in Nazi Germany. It wasn't a life that anyone should have to live. It was for a season. It was man trying to fix the mess the world was in, and it was an evil like I had never felt. People lording over those that were still left.
Well, I don't know how where at this point things we're seeing how that could even be fixed.
I don't think it could be. That was a season I saw in my vision that it was probably one of the to be alive then probably would be one of the most horrible times on the earth to be here.
I don't even want to think about it, but I know that's where we're headed.
Yeah.
Where America's headed.
Yep.
We trust. We have so many securities right now. We trust in this and that, and we rely on this and that.
Yep.
And yet it sounds like everything's completely being stripped from America. You're just dealing with a continent of
yeah.
In fact, we can say something?
I was going to say, we're living in a day and hour when people want, their governments to think for them.
Is there even a government going on here? I mean, it sounds like everything's just
chaotic. Yeah. But there's
what kind of government?
I think when I saw those frogs leaping into people early on in my vision, I think that has a lot to do with what I'm witnessing right now in this hour we're in right now, where people are wanting a one world government, and they're wanting a global community. It's just something to be very precautious of, and we've got to have a person running for president and almost getting in that's a socialist, a communist. It should tell you that's something about the spiritual condition of a country God is getting ready to bring judgment on.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to think about, you mentioned a part in the previous show to where you were looking at the East Coast. It's scorched. There's drought. There's nothing there. It's
green. Yeah.
You used a word with me when we were talking on the phone that I have described before. As I see America, and this is basically what you're saying right here. We're going to be looking at a wasteland, and
yes.
I only see being left here at a certain point, and you kind of described that at one point as well, that there's just going to be like maybe very little life left. And if there is, it's only evil people, people that.
Right, and pockets of people, perhaps.
So there's just
Yeah.
these pockets or areas of where.
Yeah, yep. And
So we're not populated anymore.
No.
At this point,
I
on
don't
what
think
you're
so.
seeing,
Not
America's
with
not
what I'm-
populated. The cities
No.
aren't flourishing. We're not going down to the store and we're buying our stuff.
Nope, it's
There-
chaos.
There's not.
It's
There's not a
chaos,
market where I'm being able to use at
Yeah.
any part of this where I can go down. I can
Yeah.
use my chip that I'm supposed to have in my
Well,
hand. And,
what I saw at that point in my vision was chaotic, and I'd like to say, oh, I saw a flash. It was a nuclear bomb go off. I'd be lying if I said that.
no,
But
you saw effects.
I did see the effects of. In other words, if you read what a nuclear winter is all about, I saw that.
And that appears to be, which we discussed, that appears to be what you were seeing. And,
Yeah.
and how far down, I'm just curious, how far down in Florida were you seeing snow? Because some people are going to say that it snows in Florida now.
No,
but how
I'm talking about to Miami. In other words, I'm seeing the coast of the southern coast of Florida with ice in the water, tides at 4, 5, 10 times bigger than they should be, crashing against, and snow coming down like you're in Colorado.
That's biblical.
Yeah.
And it also sounds like a nuclear winter, which I kind of touched on.
I think so.
Unless there's another explanation of that.
Well, I believe in my own mind. In other words, I can't say I saw these things in my vision. I did not see a nuclear bomb go off, but in my own mind, I believe what I was seeing was nuclear.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense, especially if you're looking at, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
skylines.
Right. I can't
Gone,
think of anything
turned
else.
over,
Yeah.
melted.
Right. I can't think of anything else it could be.
Some people don't know this. Nuclear bombs, they detonate above, and for you to see the skyline tilting like that.
Yeah. That makes good sense.
So you're looking America as it's basically a wasteland.
It's decimated. Yeah.
You're seeing. So back to what I was saying, there's no one world order going on to where everything's a normal society. Like I say, people envision being able to go out and use the grid, which is what a chip would be using up. I want to go to the store, want to buy stuff off the shelves. There is no shelves, or at least there's no food on the shelves. And
At this point in my vision, I can't tell you where that would fit into the tribulation period, what I was seeing. The people probably that study it more than I would know, but I do know what I'm seeing, there's no order to it.
And that's why I'm saying the church, you're not ready. You are so not ready.
No, there's too many people that they've got a pie in the sky concept of all of this, and they think they're just it doesn't matter what kind of life you're living, you're going to be raptured, and because you say Jesus, you're out of here. I don't think it's quite that simple.
No.
Yeah.
So if I was to try to put this into a context, I'm in a city, and you've seen them decimated, and if I was to be walking down the street, if there's a street to walk down, I mean, what am I seeing? I'm seeing fires. I'm seeing. You mentioned something about dead bodies, and it was just. I was saving it just for the behind the scenes. I didn't want to talk about the dead bodies. What were you seeing?
I've preached in Haiti. It's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and mothers take their babies and throw them in the trash heap that they put the garbage in when the babies die at night. And Haiti, the island of Haiti, as destitute and horrible as the conditions are there, that's Beverly Hills compared to what I saw.
Really?
I mean, yeah, that's Beverly Hills.
And Haiti.
And Haiti's not Beverly Hills. And, in other words, the things that I saw were the only thing I can tell you, Steve. I felt overwhelmed by it. I think that's why I sobbed for 3 hours when I came out of that vision, because
I couldn't imagine.
It was overwhelming. To have seen that and to realize that was the future of this great country was overwhelming to me at that time in my life.
So your emotions remained intact and everything as
you're
watching this. You're getting.
You still feel. I mean, when your spirit's out of your body, or at least my experience was, I still felt the same way I have emotions sitting here today talking to you. Mm-hmm. I still had feelings about things I was seeing and things I didn't even want to look upon.
Because it was horrible.
It was horrible. I mean, to see bodies stacked in the street, and people not even touching those bodies. They're laying there.
I was going to ask you that, because we held this for behind the scenes. You're looking at piles of dead bodies. People weren't mourning over them. They weren't crying over them.
They're decaying in the street. There's so much chaos. There's not even a family member to claim a body.
Really, they're not even. The bodies are just there.
It's just there. It's just there. And they're stacked like kindling wood in the street. And laying there rotting and dying. They're dead and rotting. I should say.
And so you saw stacks of these.
Yep. So I saw them stacked up like kindling wood bodies. If you ever watched a video of the way the concentration camps were during the World War II, you take that and multiply it in magnitude of how horrible it was.
Yeah.
It was just a death and destruction.
What we didn't get to is where your vision ends at the 3.5 hour mark.
Right.
You're looking. I don't want to tell it for it, but you're looking at ships coming at.
Yep.
This is the very ending. The very ending. Give me your feelings to tell me what's going on, what's in your mind, and what happens.
Okay. Throughout the vision, Jesus is standing behind me. I'm not allowed to turn my head and look at him.
I didn't know he was there then.
He was there. I wanted to look at him, but I've often thought I'm not there because I'm doing such a good job. I'm there because I'm doing such a bad job.
Yeah.
I'm going to quit.
Yeah, you're going to leave the ministry.
Yeah, I'm going to leave the ministry, and I wanted to turn and look at Christ. I wasn't allowed to. He was behind me, and in the end of the vision, I'd seen so many horrendous things, and now I'm looking across the United States of America as though I'm looking through a periscope or a telescope. I see all of these fleets of red Chinese ships.
Now we're reaching towards the end of your encounter.
I'm at the end of my vision.
Fine,
this is the very end of my vision.
That's fine.
I see all of these ships from China. Well, if you go back in 1978, there were no ships in China. So I remember people telling me I didn't know my history. Those I didn't share anything.
That'd be a little frustrating, but you're looking in the future,
I'm looking in the
they're
future,
trying to say, well, they don't exist.
Yeah, I had people rebuke me for that and say, well, that right there shows me you're out of your mind.
Well, you are out of your mind.
But China, there were all these ships. I knew there were warships. I mean, the sense they were, of course, armed with nuclear weapons. All that was there, that sense that
you had the sense.
This is destruction here. This is destruction.
So they're not coming here to help us. They're not coming here to assist us and say, America needs aid.
No,
we want to help you guys and be by your sides. The Chinese were not. They weren't that friendly.
They're there to finish off what is left of.
And you knew that.
Right.
You knew they were going to take care of us.
Right.
Not with aid, but.
For instance, there's a coronavirus right now. So what does Russia and Saudi Arabia decide to do? They decide to say, let us help you, America. No, they decide to drop the cost of fuel so they can put Trump's economy out of business. They hate America. It doesn't matter if people think.
And I thought China was friendly.
Yeah, everybody thinks they're friendly. Yeah, right. So now I'm looking across America as though looking through a telescope. I see all of this huge fleet of warships, and I know they're Chinese, and they're facing eastward toward the west coast, and they're just getting ready to attack. And I know Christ is standing behind me. This is in the end of my vision.
What are you feeling when you see these?
I spoke. I said, this is the end of America. I spoke those words. I knew Christ was standing there. I said, this is the end of the United States of America.
And what were you feeling? I mean,
well, this is it. I've watched the whole movie. Now we're to the final chapter and the movie's over. I'm thinking, this is it. There's no more America left. They're getting ready to obliterate whatever's left.
Yeah.
And I no sooner said that than a warring angel, an angel that was big enough to reach from the top of the United States down to the bottom on the west coast, stretched his hands out, and I knew at that moment.
That's a big angel.
It was a big angel, and he was putting a stop to what I thought was the end of the end. The angel was there to stop it, and at that moment, my spirit went back into my body, just as I saw.
So right as you see the Chinese ships are getting ready to do, I guess they're going to take care of us.
Whatever's left, they're getting rid of it.
If there was anything left, they're not going to leave anything. And so this angel says, "Stop."
Yep, just stop, and then put his hands out from coast to coast, top to bottom, I should say, and just stop.
So unless the angel got everybody to change their minds, Because this is where you're right back into your body. You saw nothing past this, right?
Nope.
You're,
My spirit went right back in my body. As soon as I saw that angel and he put his hands out like that, it stopped. It ended. So that would also be a point in the book. People would have to figure it out for yourself, because I don't.
If the viewers, by any chance, happen to have the graph, and when they get your book, they're going to be able to piece it together. They're going to know what's happening right here.
Yep.
I have preached forever and ever that the day of the rapture is nuclear holocaust. And according to you, these Chinese people, these warships,
They're
not here for aid.
They're decimating.
They're going to
what's
take
left,
care of America, and she's not. I mean, if anything's left, it's not going to be there at all.
Right.
So unless this angel somehow changed everybody's mind,
I don't
they're all
know.
going to turn around and go back home.
I would like to see what happened from that point
You just
forward.
didn't get to see it.
No, I didn't get to see it. My spirit, the second I saw that angel put a stop to everything, bang, 6:30, my spirit went back in my
3.5
body.
hours later.
3.5 hours
Exactly
later.
3.5 hours later.
And I opened my eyes and looked at that clock. It said 6:30.
That is the rapture, folks. It's getting ready to take place right before, at the 3.5 hour mark or the 3.5 year mark. It's all prophetic. It's so perfect how this worked out with you. Yes, it would have been nice if we had seen the rapture happen, but I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I'll leave all that to the experts.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Folks, I have more to say. Don't go anywhere. But thank you, Pastor Danny Davis, for being
I
here.
enjoyed it.
When it got to the part of the dead bodies rotting in the roads, even piles of them, as Danny saw, just piles of dead bodies that nobody even cares that they're even there. That's horrific, folks, and we cannot wrap our minds around this. And some of you still may not be understanding what you've heard, whether or not you know this. David Wilkerson said he saw things similar to this. So he saw rioting, major cities on fire. So did Danny, though worse. John Paul Jackson saw things very similar. His entire neighborhood's just gone because of rioting. If you follow John Paul Jackson, you know that's the things he talked about. And worse. You just got to go over with the things he said. Danny saw similar things too, if not worse. And that's why we did the behind the scenes. You don't want to discuss dead bodies lying in the roads, folks. Fires everywhere. There are things I didn't discuss. We didn't discuss. Some things that weren't even in the book or in the behind the scenes that Danny has mentioned. He saw softball-sized hail. I'll never forget when he said that. Softball-sized hail coming down. And why do you think that is? That's because of when he said this was man-made. These weather patterns, folks, were man-made. It makes no other sense for them to. Now, he never saw the causes, admittedly, yes. But I've tried to get, and other prophets have given you the cause. When you got cities melted over because such heat was above, it's not fires from beneath that are melting the buildings like this. Oh, no. This was in the atmosphere. So weather patterns are going to, a nuclear winter will cause all kinds of crazy things. All the way down, he said, look at Colorado, down to Miami, on the Florida coastline, ice, water, the waves were ice. So no wonder you're going to see softball-sized hail. Again, he didn't mention that. He also saw, I'll never forget, the very first time back in 1978 when he had this encounter. I heard him in 1982 when I never heard of a David Wilkerson talking or John Paul Jackson wasn't even around. I never heard A. Allen's vision at that point in time either. Or the things William Branham apparently saw. I didn't know about any of that. It was the first, when I was hearing the man preach, I'm just going, yes, amen, amen, amen. And it was funny to hear a man preach pre-trib. You had this encounter that lasted 3.5 hours, representing 3.5 years. He didn't understand it. I just thought it was kind of amusing, sort of. But you also, if you put two and two together, being the devil's advocate, you know the guy that wasn't concocting it. You don't preach pre-trib and say this. At least if you're going to concoct something, you're going to make it line up with what you've been preaching, right? No, they didn't jive. They didn't jive at all. The man at one point, when I heard him back then in 1982, he was saying, and I want to tell you, I'll never forget how he said, I want to tell you, I saw the mark and I saw the church rebel against it. He knows the church is here, according to what Danny says, as he and I have talked. He also doesn't see him anymore at one point. He doesn't know why. And as I've tried to explain, the church, folks, you are the church. And if you're not, I highly recommend you ask Jesus into your heart now. Ask him to come into your life, to forgive you of your sins. Because these things are going to come onto you suddenly. You may not get another chance. Preaching pre-trib and having this type of encounter doesn't make sense. We are going to be here. The church is going to be here. And as I told him, we're going to go underground. And as if anybody would understand after a nuking, you're going to leave America. And I have tried to preach that people just say, well, America's not Babylon. America's Babylon. I did a show on it. I got very, very detailed. I'm not going to get into it again. You can see it on our website if you want to go look at it, folks. It's on Babylon, and it shows you America's Babylon. And if you want to argue that, I'll tell you this, she's going to suffer the same fate, if not worse, than Babylon. We're Babylon. That's why the church is going to vacate America and go underground. A little bit of both. America is going to become a wasteland. If you could picture in your mind what I've tried to explain before, and the way he sees it too, if you could picture this looking at a desert and seeing a little tumbleweed going across with the little tune going in the background going do-do-do-do, do-do-do. That's kind of what I see every time I look at America in its future. Yeah, with a little tumbleweed going. We're not going to be here, and the church is going to get out here. And why? Because there's going to be radiation, as even John Paul Jackson saw. Then he didn't see radiation. He certainly saw the effects of a nuclear winter and the effects of nukes. The entire East Coast being scorched. I wanted you to hear some things that weren't mentioned. I wanted you to understand why we did the behind the scenes. It got brutal. I want to tell you something here. Continue watching the broadcast, folks. For some of you, I've had some of you say, well, what are we going to do, Steve? Okay, great. So this is going to happen. What are we going to do? I have a prepping video that's going to come out that I'm going to put on television, or I'm going to advertise it on TV. Those of you that have internet access, you can go to YouTube and you can hear some of the prepping videos that I've given. But I'm going to add some new videos and I'm going to put it into this DVD. And I'm going to make an offer there that's going to be exclusive for people who get the DVD. And it's going to tell you where to go, what to do. Look for more to come. Until next time, take care and God bless.